again, putting my true self forwards, you
Yeah.
find the right person.
Yes. Yes.
So how would somebody know when they've found the right person?
Oh, okay. I don't know if we all have these conversations when we're in our 20s. Like, we don't talk about, okay, so when we have a family, what is the split of chores going to be like?
I haven't really shared much about my story. Almost this pressure, like if you feel unhappy, whether it's relationship, work, whatever, it's almost like you just got to stick with it because you should have it together. Giving us subtle little hints here and
oh,
there is not going to work.
no, we like to think you can read our minds, but even then, I'm like, I don't know what's in my mind. So I don't know how you can think and figure out what's in there. But if you find yourself obsessing, like, why are you asking constantly, is this the right person? Most times, I would say if you're with the right person, that doesn't come up as much.
So when that just ended like that, I was just like, well, like, what else am I believe? Like, I had no trust in who I was.
It's been a long time coming.
I think the first post I seen of yours was, I think it was about starting over in your 30s.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if I'm your target market, but it just hit me like like it hit me
Oh,
right in the right spot, right at the right time. I was like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's when
And
I sort of, sorry, you
I
go.
love that. No, no, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I think a lot of us probably are starting over, quote unquote, in our 30s in some aspect of our lives, whether it's our careers, even if people have had families there. I have girlfriends who are trying to figure out if they want to pivot in their careers after starting a family. So I think we just don't talk about it so much. And there's this concept of in our 30s, we have it all figured out. But I really don't think we do. We have some parts, and the rest we're still figuring it out. And it's funny that you touched on if you're the target audience. I really think anyone that resonates with the content is the target. But truthfully, the main target that I was creating for was like younger me, essentially.
Mm,
But I've had more people like you who've reached out, and I think it's more universal. I don't think it's just, yeah, it's not just women, but everyone has to go through that journey.
yeah, 100%. Do you think there's like a pressure or a stigma around starting over in your 30s? I feel like, again, like you said, most people should have it figured out, and you're 35, 38, whatever. How old are you?
I'm 35. I'm
35.
35.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of
Yeah.
years on you.
A
And it's
little,
like,
yeah.
um, and yeah, you're meant to have it sorted. And there's almost this pressure, like if you feel unhappy, whether it's relationship, work, whatever, it's almost like you just got to stick with it because you should have it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. I agree. And there is so much pressure. I think maybe it's just societally. And if we look around us, there's that conventional path. And if you follow the conventional path, in theory, by your 30s, you should have settled down, or again, most people feel as though they should have spent the time investing in the careers. And a lot of it, I think, is fear driven, if I'm honest. And it's exactly what you say. It's that if you're unhappy, you just feel like you can't change. And I fundamentally like disagree with that so much, but mostly
Mm,
because I think the people I'm around, if I look at even my parents, and I guess a bit of context is my parents have separated, they're divorced, but they had to start over a lot later in their lives. And I've seen quite intimately how they've also, maybe not by choice, sometimes I think sometimes it's not because we want to have this change, but it's forced upon us, but they were able to rebuild and just find much happier lives, more peace in their lives. And if they can do it in their like 50s to 60s, in our 30s, why aren't we taking the time to reevaluate and just make sure we're living more aligned? And I think if you're someone that values growth, or just someone that values, yeah, alignment and just staying true to yourself, which I love the messaging
mm,
that you have, I think you're more likely to reevaluate and then take steps to change. But it's still hard, even though I think you're coming up against all these barriers and layers and external voices that make you feel as though you're being judged. And also, there's shame in getting it wrong. Although
mm.
I just think that it's part of the journey, and you'll be wrong about so many things in your life. Just move on from it at some point. Like, yes, grieve it and get upset, but I always like to think of it like, what's the alternative? So the alternative is staying here because you should,
100%.
versus, okay, well, the alternative is like, you could have something better. Why
Mm,
don't you just chase it?
yeah.
Yeah. So Is that how
Um,
you've been feeling?
yeah, but that's what this podcast is all about. Like, a lot of people will say, why you're talking about dating in your 30s on this podcast, but it's all about finding your true form, like your true self. Jack, that is a good point. Thanks, Jack. I don't know. I don't know how to break into these ads. I do want to thank you for being here and listening to this episode. As you might have noticed, I don't have sponsors, I don't run ads, I don't even do intros. I just want to bring you the best possible content, get you the best guest so you can find your true form and live a long, healthy, happy life. So if that's working, I want you to interact with this podcast. All I ask is you give it a 5-star rating, comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Wherever you're listening, most podcast platforms have some sort of algorithm at the moment. So the more you interact, not just listen, it's just going to help me grow so I can get better and better guests on to help you find your true form. If you feel like you want to do a little bit more, copy and paste a link to this episode, send it to a friend or family member that you know will help them as well. I'm going to leave it there and let Jack continue on his good on his, on his good point. And a lot of the time you feel stuck and yeah, you're not sure what to do. But I guess what we'll go into as well is like what you just said is like you feel like there's something better out there, but like when should you let go? Like, is it the right choice? Like, um,
Oh,
as we'll go in, like I guess we'll both have a few stories about the dating apps and all that sort of stuff. Like, how do you know if you've met the right person? All that sort of stuff. And yeah, because again, like I think you spoke about it in maybe one of your episodes, it's just that societal pressure at the moment, or Instagram, social media, all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
It's like there is something better out there. The grass is always greener on that other side. So keep chasing, keep chasing, keep chasing. But it's that choice, like there's just an abundance of choice. Well, it seems like there is.
It does seem like there is. I find that such an interesting question. They're big questions that you
Mm,
have, but also I think it's such a fine balance of not abandoning something that is good and you can work on and has all of the foundations just because you think there's something better on the other side. Because I think there's a certain element of relationships and whatever it is that you have in life that requires a conscious choice and effort to nurture. But on the flip side, you also don't want to fall trap to settling. And I say settling, and I know you're going to ask about what that means, but settling with this concept of, I think it's whenever you act out of fear, is what I've come to realize. So when you're scared of being lonely and you're driven by the wrong reasons, I think it's just really taking time to reflect and dig deep and understand, tune into yourself, understand where you're coming from. So sometimes that just takes extra time and healing and learning about yourself. But I know that for myself, it wasn't that I was scared about, sorry, it wasn't that I was scared. It was more, I wasn't really worried about missing out on that, you know, perfect partner per se. I think I was so scared of being stuck with the wrong person. And having said that, my wounds were I didn't want to be wrong about the person I picked. So I would over invest and work really hard with trying to fix what was there and not seeing the person in front of me just wasn't compatible. And I think it can be a tricky thing to navigate, but it really comes down to turning inward and seeing, okay, am I staying in this relationship out of fear because I'm scared of being alone? I'm scared I'm not good enough for someone else. I'm scared I'm not deserving of the love that I want. Versus, okay, am I just not appreciating what I have because it is
mm.
maybe objectively really good, but I have overconsumed on social media. As you say, I'm seeing all of these examples of these highlights reels of other couples having this perfect life. And you have to get real with yourself. Is that something achievable? And are you just looking over there, that whole grass is greener lens? So that's probably how I'd approach it. But it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to navigate.
Well, you're pretty much hitting on all the subjects I want to dive into. So before we go any further, do you want to just introduce yourself a little and explain, why you were dating in your 30s?
Yeah, of course. So I I guess a bit of context is I'm an immigrant, eldest daughter, and I grew up with I just want to give context as to how it influenced my dating. But I grew up with a very high achieving, perfectionistic, you had to earn your worth kind of mentality. And it wasn't, I think it wasn't intentional, but that's just what I'd learned to value about myself. And I was a people pleaser and very good at molding myself and adapting. And I kind of valued that about myself for a while. And so when I started dating, I think in your 20s, you kind of have this superficial idea about what you want. Everyone wants that family, want to settle down, but you don't really think about what that entails in terms of who would make a good father, a good husband. I don't know if you're the same, but I think I knew what I wanted, but I didn't really think about the qualities that um, I would need to find in a partner. So when I was dating, I think I wasn't consciously dating. I think I was more so looking at the people who I was meeting, and I would pick the best one in terms of, oh, we got along, we have good banter, and he tells me he wants the same things. And so dating was like fun and it made sense at the time. But I had a lot of insecurities as well. And I felt as though, again, that whole earning piece and having to achieve, I was chasing what looked good on paper. I wasn't necessarily seeing, okay, do I feel emotionally safe with that person? What does that even mean? And and so when I started dating, I don't think I was my full self. And I don't know if other people or you can relate, but I think I put a version of myself I thought would be lovable, and it worked for a while. But over time, yeah, I think I found myself in relationships that weren't compatible. And eventually, in my early to mid 20s, I dated someone that I thought I was going to marry. And I actually got engaged. I think you might have heard about it, but I got engaged, and I it was someone that I felt really conflicted because it was someone that I did love and I thought we could make it work, but again, we weren't really compatible. And we met in our early 20s. So in that season of life where having lots of fun, we're partying, it's great. But
Mm.
then by the time we got engaged in our mid 20s, I wanted that settled down future. And he said he wanted it too, but I think he still wanted to hold on to that season of our lives when we're still partying. And I think there wasn't anything wrong with that. It's that we started to diverge and I couldn't accept that. And ultimately, I remember I was so close. I was so close to that future that we all wanted. I was looking at homes, I was like
Mm.
wedding planned, and family was just really within reach. And that was probably the hardest decision for me because even though I felt as though I was so close to succeeding, my gut just knew that with this person, where if I looked ahead, the future was actually kind of scary. I just didn't think we were aligned. And ultimately, what ended up happening was when there was like a break of trust, I couldn't, um, I couldn't work through that again. And I think it was one of those decisions where I knew the right decision to let it go, but I was so scared because I was like, I'm really deviating from not just my path that I wanted, but also from my peers. Everyone else around me was doing this other thing. But the thing that really, I guess, pushed me forward was acknowledging that if I looked ahead, I would be unhappy. I just knew that. And I know that categorically now, but sometimes you have to listen to your gut. There's this voice that kind of comes up, and you just, yeah, I think the louder it gets, the more you just know you have to make the hard decision, even though it's clouded by, as you say, all these things, society, your peers, and that it was so within reach. It was just one of those things where I've wanted this my whole life, as far as I've known. But then navigating that really helped me. I think it was the most important change that helped me kind of like go inward and work out what I wanted.
That, sorry,
Yeah,
that's a big thing. That inner listening to that inner voice and looking into the future and going, oh, this isn't actually going the way I like. How did that work? Because I know you sort of just breeze over that, but a lot of people are in that
yeah,
position, and I guess a way or help them understand how you actually listen to that voice and I guess projected that life forwards. Did you write it down? Was it
yeah,
journaling?
I
Was it just
did. I did a lot of things. I'm going to be honest. I did a lot of journaling and I found myself, and I should provide this piece of context about who I was at the time. I was someone that was constantly consuming relationship content. Like I would just, anything that popped up that said, 10 ways to know the person you're with is the right one, or 5 ways to know these are the red flags. Like I would just on my Facebook feed and everything. And I consumed it because I realized I was seeking an answer for something that was already within me, but I wanted something external to tell me, yeah, this is the person you should be with, or this isn't.
Mm,
And they're just small signs. But if you find yourself obsessing, like, why are you asking constantly, is this the right person? Most times, I would say if you're with the right person, that doesn't come up as much. Like, you may question it and you kind of, take time to reflect and write down or think about, oh, well, lots of pros, a few cons, we can work on it. But if it's constantly coming up, there are little signals. And then I think it got to the point where when we did get engaged, I just remember feeling, why was this? It's tuning into the emotions, right? I was like, why am I feeling really uncertain? I should be more excited. But
mm,
there were these feelings of fear, and I also didn't feel safe. I was like, what is not aligned? Why am I not fully excited about the future? And I know that things like big decisions like that can often get you a bit overwhelmed, but it just kept coming up. So I sought help from other people. I actually went to counseling. I actually went to my
mm.
first counselor because I was trying to understand where these thoughts were coming from. And she had a lot of insights that she was very wise. And she told me, she identified all the kind of incompatibilities and she helped me see, hey, you know this. You're telling me these stories, you're just not ready to accept it. And so I think that's where talking to friends that you trust, talking to people who you feel have more knowledge who can guide you can really help you understand where your feelings are coming from. But it always starts small. I will tell you, it starts small, but it will
Mm.
get louder. So there are all these signals. And then I think I tried to bring it up with my ex fiance at the time. We had these conversations, and I think he really tried to reassure me, but something just didn't click. Like there was something missing. And I feel like your intuition, it's almost like it pays attention to the subtle cues. You can tell when what someone says doesn't align with what they're doing. And I think
Mm.
I'm someone, and I don't know if you're the same or some girls are the same. We, I used to really just listen to what people said, and I wasn't paying enough attention to what they were doing. And people can only convince you so far because when their actions don't align, like things will reveal themselves. I think some people are really persuasive, and I fall into that so many times because I just love hearing, what's nice. But over time, I assure you, when the actions don't align, you'll sense it. Everyone is able to tune in. And yeah, I think over time it just became louder. And then just, yeah, when I finally found out that I just feel as though nothing wrong with my ex fiance in terms of who he was, but he didn't feel comfortable sharing his full self with me. And that just made me question, like, who are you? Do I really know this person? And again, it was from fear. I think he was just scared that if he revealed parts of himself that was different to me, I wouldn't accept it. And
Mm.
I felt really stuck because I was like, I understand where you're coming from, but now you're not letting me choose. Like, I don't get to make an informed decision if I'm not able to learn everything about you. And I think that's a scary thing for everyone to navigate. But yeah, it wasn't a straight answer, is what I'll tell you, but it will come up over time.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be very helpful. Like again, because we always get
Mm.
stuck in our own head and we always tell ourselves stories. So I guess telling those stories to other people and like seeking professional help as well and telling them the stories. Does this add up? Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't, like you've realized.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I think a lot of times we actually know, but we're so good at convincing ourselves otherwise because you want a different outcome. And I'm going to be so honest, I didn't want to accept it because I was like, no, I want this. I want this to work. And I want to be with this person. Like it's what I wanted. But deep, deep down, I knew that it's not what I deserved. And also, it probably wasn't going to play out the way that I wanted. It's
Mm.
just, yeah. So our minds are so good at tricking us sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um,
Mm.
I'm trying to decide if I dive into my story or not. I
Yeah, you're welcome.
I haven't really shared much about my story because I get so if you go back about I guess, a year now. So about 50, 60 episodes. My
Mm.
co-host was my partner.
Oh, you had a co-host.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yes.
she was like we were in business together. So
Yeah.
yeah, so she was a nutrition coach, I was the PT, we'd work together and we had the podcast together. And from my again, looking back on it now, there was plenty of signs that we weren't compatible. And I think the pressure, I I guess similar maybe to you, like I had a vision of where we wanted to be and what we're trying to do, and I guess I was trying to push in that direction, and yeah, she just wasn't vibing with it anymore. But it sort of ended very suddenly for me. So I didn't see the end coming. So I was sort of thrust into a single life in my late 30s. And it was, yeah, I
Mm.
found it very different because I guess I guess unlike you, I had no idea through my 20s what I was looking for. I was very lost. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted to be. Like, it was very hard for me to commit to a relationship because I just didn't know who I was. Like, I didn't
Of
know.
course.
So it was hard to commit. And then I guess I found somebody I was committing to. And then for it to end like that, and then going from dating in your 20s and then dating into your 30s, I've been trying, like, since I've sort of come across your content and like we're going to get connected and do this, I've been trying to ask people of all ages, like, is it different? What are you feeling in your 20s? Like, asking 20-year-olds, asking 30-year-olds, 50, 60. And
Yeah.
I think it's just times have definitely just changed.
It
Like,
has.
when was last dating, I don't think dating apps were really that common. Like, I'd never used them before this year. So
Mm.
a lot has definitely changed in the dating scene, but I think it's just people have changed, the things have changed. Uh,
It has.
Obviously, there's a lot more. I think it's just more like we were saying before, like awareness of other people's lives and, oh, should I be living that life? So
Oh, yeah, no, I
yeah.
agree. I can see how it's been a big, it would be such a big transition for you.
Mm.
And I think when it's unexpected, you kind of, uh, it can be overwhelming, all of the shifts and changes. But I just want to touch on the part where you shared that you were really lost. And I think a lot of us, in some extent, are still figuring ourselves out. And even though I quote unquote knew what I wanted in my 20s, I said what I knew I wanted. When I ended that engagement, I completely lost myself in terms of I lost my own sense of self trust because I was like, how did I find myself in this position and misread all of the cues? I didn't misread them, I just didn't listen to them. But I think then I had to really rebuild that sense of, well, who am I? Who do I want to be with? And then learn to trust what I was evaluating in front of me. And then I think once you do that, the more you do that, the more you tune in yourself, then dating becomes, I think you know how it feels. It is hard, but it is so much more meaningful and purposeful. And you're able to approach it feeling less like, what do I want? And who's this person in front of me? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you feel that way?
100%. So obviously when it ended, I just questioned everything I held. Like,
Of
I
course.
believed all these stories I
Yep.
was telling me. Like, again, we're building this future, we're building this business, we're building this, and this is gonna what like this is what it's projecting out to be. So when that just ended like that, I was just like, well, like what else am I believe? Like, I had no trust in who I was.
Of
Like,
course.
yeah. So obviously, building that back up. But I think, like, again, you can look back on those and it's been like, as shit as it was, it's a good thing because you sort of almost stop everything and go, well, who am I? What do I want? What do I actually believe? And who do I believe I am? And it helps a lot. It's just hard for people to do that because it takes a lot of time looking at yourself. And again, like I feel shit because I guess the roles were almost reversed with you and your partner and me, my partner,
Mm.
because where was I going with that? I guess I was forcing her into this mold that she didn't want to fit in. And I didn't even see
Mm.
that. Like, again, I
Mm.
felt really bad because like apparently she was so unhappy for a couple of months, 6 months or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like, how could I not see that? Like, this person I love so much and I care about and I want to build this future. I couldn't even see that she was unhappy for that long. So then that made me go, oh, okay, well, again, like, do I actually know people? Like, how am I reading people? How am I reading situations? How am I reading like the person sitting in front of me that I have feelings for? So, although again, it was bad, it sort of made me, relearn a lot of things. And then going
Yeah.
into the dating apps, I think it, I think it helped.
Yeah, oh, of course it did.
Yeah.
I think I just think that it's really brave putting yourself out there to go through all this again and sharing and everything. But I think everyone who has has ever had to change the direction that they thought their life would go also has to go through this process of grieving almost. It's like you have to grieve that future you thought. And then I think sometimes when we are so we're so invested in that future, that's where all your attention goes. So it's nothing that, it wasn't like you were intentionally trying to ignore the signs. It is
Mm.
that you were working really, moving really forward towards this goal that felt shared to you. And I think in some ways it just speaks to there may have been a miscommunication between you. I don't know, but sometimes it's like she may have felt, yes, she was unhappy, but she didn't really know how to broach it until it got to that point. Because I will say that from the other point of view, that sometimes we spend a lot of time thinking about this isn't what I want, this isn't what I want, but we're not necessarily speaking it to you straight
Mm.
away. We're not necessarily communicating that as loudly. We might say, oh, hey, there's this little thing, but can we, like, iron this out? But really, it speaks to this whole direction isn't what I want. But it takes time to actually understand and then acknowledge that and then speak it, because that is scary. And maybe because when you do speak it, you know that consequences may not be something that you're quite ready for, or you don't know how it's going to end, but it may not end the way that you want. And
Mm.
so it can be difficult. And I think, yeah, I would give yourself some grace in that time, in that, like, yes, maybe you weren't as aware, but also I think you're still trying in that relationship. It's just, yeah, maybe both people weren't on the same page
Yeah.
for that
And
time.
I, and I think you bring up a good point. There's just, I think it's again probably a guy and girl thing. Guys need to be sat down and said, "Hey, this is going on. This is what I'm thinking." Giving us subtle little hints here and
Oh,
there is not going to work.
no, we like to think you can read our minds, but even then, I'm like, I don't know what's in my mind. So I don't know how you can think and figure out what's in there. And I would have to say that for as someone who was that and then has entered this healthier relationship I'm in, I have had to learn for myself to speak up and get more comfortable just sharing what's on my mind and not have the fear, because that
Mm.
is something that in the past I was so scared that I would hurt my partner's feelings, or they wouldn't accept what I was voicing, or they would just see it as, wow, you're being too much. Like, why are you always having issues? But really, most of the time, it's just a valid feeling. And when we talk about it, I feel better immediately. But yeah, there's a lot of unlearning from previous like reactions or experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes to the point of you being with somebody that, accepts you. If you're speaking your mind and saying, hey, this isn't really what I thought, or this is annoying, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you're being your authentic self. So then that person can know that, well, that's who you are. So if you're hiding that, again, that sort of cycle happens of,
Correct.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So relationships done. Let's
Yeah.
so how long from I guess, the end of your relationship to when you started dating? Is there a time period that you should wait? Like,
That is, I don't like to give set time periods, as in like, X month, X weeks, or
mm,
however long. But I think from my own personal experience, from maybe stepping into it too early, I would say you want to not wait, but you want to take the time to process the previous relationship, to grieve it, to get upset, feel the emotions. I think after the big one, the engagement ending, I actually just went straight to distracting myself and not really taking time to actually process what it meant for me, and then also take time to heal the parts of yourself that need healing and pouring into yourself. I think you want to, especially what you touched on, which is like rediscovering and tuning in and trusting yourself and making sure you fill yourself up so that you feel more confident, and then you'll be more ready, I think, to date. I don't think you'll ever be perfectly healed. I used to think that once you're fully healed and then you're this healthy version, you can just enter in a relationship. I think the healing continues. But the opposite of that is rushing into dating because you miss having a person. And I
Mm.
think everyone can attest to this. When you have gone from being in a long-term relationship to single, no matter what phase or what age group you're in, you do have to transition to having that person in your life, that one person that was your go-to, and then you lose it. And it is a loss. I think you do have to understand it. Once you have that loss, you don't want to date just to fill it up with just anyone,
Mm.
right? Because when you are alone and you don't have that person check into, then just having someone feel that feels really nice. But it's not necessarily the right person for you, and you haven't taken the time. I think it's really important to take the time to do whatever it is, the journaling, the therapy, the pouring into hobbies, or all those things to reflect and figure out, what have I learned from this relationship? Why did it end? I think when you figure that out, it helps you move into the next dating space with more clarity. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's you bring that up on one of your podcasts, like dating out of the fear of being alone. And
yeah,
like for me, again, back to my example, like, you're with somebody all the time and then they're gone, you're like, oh shit, like it's just me. Like it's
yeah,
so I probably went back to it very soon. Like we'll probably dive into your examples of all the dates. Like you go over it in your podcast and I was listening to that, and you like I think you had maybe four or five different examples, and I swear I was every single one of them, except for the guy that
yeah,
said that he was God's gift to women. Like I don't think I've
yeah.
ever said that.
Sorry,
I'm probably the
sorry. That
opposite.
was, oh gosh, sorry. That was so funny. In hindsight, I was like, wow, the audacity to say that and actually be the worst date ever.
Mm. Uh, um,
And that's
so
okay.
um, so I again, like personal training, you get quite close with your clients. And obviously, a
Mm,
lot of my clients were working with my ex as a nutrition coach as well. So,
mm,
one of my clients, long-term clients, were training, and like, obviously, he knew about everything that was going on, and we're talking. And it just got to the point, he's like, Jack, just get on the dating apps and see someone. Because I find when you break up with somebody, it's all you talk about. And I was being
yeah.
very, like, I started to catch myself doing this. Every time I'd have a conversation, I'd be bringing it up. I'd be talking about my breakup. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, no one actually cares.
They
Like,
do to a certain extent.
yeah, exactly. But that's not all they want to hear about.
Of course.
And it's all I wanted to talk about. So I
Of
really had to
course.
catch myself and start understanding, like, why am I talking about this? Like, what am I trying to project? All that sort of stuff. And then Keith, like, again, long-term client,
Yeah.
good mate, he's just like, Jack, just get on the apps, just go see somebody. You just need to meet people. Because again, you
Yeah.
go in your own little shell. So uh,
Mm,
I got on the dating apps. I think it was just Tinder, I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
and I had a really good experience.
That's
So
good.
the first girl I'd contacted, I told her what was going on, like, and she basically just come out and said, "Look, Jack, you're not ready for this. Get off the apps. Go find yourself before you come on and start hurting people, because you're going to hurt people. You think
Ah,
and she said that
yeah.
you think you want to be with somebody, but you're not ready. You're just going
You
to."
can hear it.
And I was just like, "Oh, damn."
Oh,
So I
she's
thanked
doing the
her.
work. Oh
Yeah, I
gosh.
thanked her and just got off the apps
Yeah.
for about a month. And
Yeah.
so again, that sort of, I was like shit, and I was just like, oh shit, you're right. Like, so again, tried to
Yeah.
go away and do some more self work, but again, like I think I got back on there because of loneliness. But so how was your first sort of period of dating after that?
So I will just add to the story that you shared. I think it's not just you. Like when you break up with someone, it becomes the thing that consumes your mind because it's
Mm.
very fresh. It's what you're thinking about a lot. And I will say that I identified so much with that, what you shared, in that when I ended my engagement, I actually had to check myself because there was a period of time where I felt like I owed everyone this story, or I just wanted,
Mm.
again, to talk about. So anytime the slightest opening that would segue into relationship status, I'd be like, oh yeah, and yes, I just ended my engagement. And I was like, I just met you. I don't think you need to know this. And I remember one of my girlfriends actually had to tell me, she's like, Kez, you don't actually owe this part of the story to anyone. Like you don't have to share. Like there's so many other facets of yourself, to the point where when she checked me, I think afterwards, all the friends that I met later on in life actually didn't know that part about my history. Even now, when I was sharing, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you had this part of in your relationship status where you had ended an engagement." But it's because I no longer identified with it. Because there are so
Mm.
many other parts to ourselves, you know, your work, your passions, like your hobby, everything, your family, your friends. But at the time, it becomes everything that you want to talk about because you're still processing it. And everyone goes through that part of the journey. In terms of with your question, I would say that when I was in my 30s and single, I would say I spent about a year trying to spend that time alone. And I remember when I first ended a relationship in my 30s. So I actually did date a little bit afterwards. And that's what I mean by you want to wait till you're ready, because I would enter these relationships not ready. And I had to keep learning. I had to relearn how to learn to listen to my instinct with this person who I knew was not right for me. And yet he
Mm.
pursued me so hard, I gave him a chance. But when I found myself in my 30s single, I had people come up to me and I think start to try to ask me out. And I remember feeling not ready. I just was like, I haven't fully processed this. And if I jump into this, and I had to really put my foot down and say, hey, I'm not ready to date. But when I had spent some time, I think I spent some time on my own and I felt kind of content with my life. Then I hopped into the apps because I was like, oh, now I'm ready to have a bit of fun with it. I think it just depends on the headspace you're in when you're
Mm.
approaching it. When, if you are feeling, oh, I'm just really sad, I'm like, I'm bored, or like, I want to connect with someone because I'm missing it. Maybe that's not the best time. Not to say you shouldn't, but if you do start dating, then you may find yourself connecting with not the right people. But for me, it was when I had built my life. I was having lots of fun. And then I was like, oh, it would be nice to kind of start dating again. And it was from a better place. So I think it's just how you feel. And I was like, oh, now I feel like more myself again. Let's start connecting with people. And I think that was what made the journey more fun than it can be. Yeah, than the opposite.
So finding yourself a little bit more and understanding yourself, obviously that would be very different dating compared to when you're 20-ish. Like
100%.
because you don't know. Like you just like you said, you're just, copying everybody else, thinking like I'll get with this person because they're cool or like, they're popular, whatever it is. It's crazy how you're meant to choose a partner then that you're meant to spend the rest of your life with when you don't even know who you are.
No. And I think that lucky people, I say lucky, but I know that it's part of like their journey, is they find someone that they can grow and evolve with. And
Mm.
I've seen those couples, they have been able to grow together, but there's no guarantee because I've changed so much in my 20s. What's to say the person that was with me isn't going to change? And that's what I meant by we diverged, because it wasn't like we weren't aligned at some point, but being aligned in the present doesn't necessarily mean you're aligned in future. And maybe that's how you felt, in that you guys had a lot that was in common for present, but the future that you wanted maybe wasn't aligned with what your ex had wanted. And I think that requires introspection and communication of what you want, and being very intentional with that along the whole way, and being open to the person in front of you and compromising. But I don't know if we all have these conversations when we're in our 20s. Like we don't talk about, okay, so when we have a family, what is the split of chores going to be like? We maybe because then we also didn't have those examples. But in my 30s, I've very intimately seen my friends go through that stage of life, and I can see what's important. But we're not thinking about that in our 20s, I don't think.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. So I guess when you started dating on the apps,
Mm.
any advice How was it? Like, what should people think about when they're getting into the apps? Do you
I
do you think they work? Did you meet your partner now
no,
on?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. No,
But we'll
but
start. Do you think they work?
I think they can work. I think they
Mhm.
can work because I have seen the couples who have met on apps and had very fruitful relationships. But I think you need to be intentional. I hate using that word without like a context, but it's you need to be intentional with using them because I will share that I had quite a limited experience. I was on Bumble where it was, I think the female was able to message first. And I remember I remember thinking it was a good way to meet a broader range of people. I think apps, if you don't, I guess it's always the alternative. If you're not using the apps, then you do have to physically put yourself out there into different social groups, into different, uh, yeah, situations where you can connect with potential partners. But on the apps, I think if you're not intentional with it, it can really drain you. I understand. It's like there's a pool of people and it does remove that human connection initially when you're just seeing a 2D kind of profile of someone.
Mm.
But that's why when I was using it, I was really hoping, I was really trying to find people that had similar values and better. And I really quickly tried to get into meeting them in person because I
Mm.
think that whether it's a small meet, whether it's a coffee or walk, whatever it is, or a date, whatever it is that you want to have, I see it as information gathering. So the faster you can get information, it can help you guide your decision making, whether you think, okay, this is someone that I can feel myself connect more and more with. And where the more I learn about them, the more I can see you're building in this like puzzle piece and you can see that that picture is what you want versus, okay, something's come up and I don't think we're aligned. And that will quickly help you just kind of weed through the people and find the person. But I
Mm.
will say that you want to be actively thinking about it because sometimes I know that for myself, I needed had a group chat of girls, of my cousins and my sister who would help me again feedback because I was to this dating scene and I remember questioning, is this normal? Like, is this what do you think this means? But a lot of the times I knew the answer myself. I think I
Yeah.
just and that's the part that was fun. But the apps can work, but I also see the flip side where it can feel really overwhelming. You're
Mm.
making judgments on people. I really think that that's where it can be a disservice because if someone's profile maybe doesn't, you know, exude the qualities that you're looking for, but that's you get to see it when you meet them. You could write them off too early. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that does do they work? I've been trying to figure that out in the lead up to this
What do you
conversation.
think? What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, well, again, I've got examples of it working. Like I know couples that have met on apps that are happy, kids, everything that they wanted. So I think it can work. For me, it was very overwhelming. Um, and like I guess because I do a lot of, work with my clients about, understanding patients, working on themselves. So I do know myself quite well, I think. The more I think I understand, the more I don't.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got on there, I was just like, how the hell do you even create a meaningful contact with anybody? Because you're getting you're getting inputs from, females liking my account, and then I'm trying to also choose females that I want to connect with. So you got inputs from both ways, and then you're trying to have conversations with everybody. And I was just like, how does this isn't going to work? So I ended up just trying to connect. Like there was two girls that, I had an actual decent conversation with. I said, look, I'm getting off the apps. Here's my number. Message me if you want. And
Mm,
yeah, ended up going on dates with them. They were great, but yeah, it just didn't work out.
mm,
But yeah, I feel like people can get caught in the trap. And it brings me up to one of the subjects that I wanted to bring up about, and we sort of touched on already, but, you know, trying to fill voids. Like if you feel alone and you're trying to feel that loneliness with somebody else, or you have some sort of insecurity, you can feel that with an app like on the dating apps quite easily. And I feel like people will get addicted because, again, the apps don't really want you to find someone because they want you on their platform forever because that's how they make money. So they're not really interested in you finding true love. They just want you to keep going on there. And yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it can be quite a big trap for people that aren't aware of, you know, who they are or what they're trying to chase.
Yes, yes, I agree with that so much. And I think with that knowledge is why you want to be so careful when you're
Mm,
using it. And exactly as you kind of touched on, I think when you get overwhelmed and you just go, I'm not really connecting with the right people, it's where you probably want to draw that strict line of, okay, these are the people I've connected with. I'm not going to keep swiping and seeing who else is out there. And I
mm,
will just, ooh, yeah, give the opportunity to connect with the person in real life or nurture real connections, as opposed to keep hopping on there, because you're right, there is also that addictive cycle and also that validation of someone
mm,
liking you. And that's probably where I would say it is a very real cycle or trap to fall into. And I think that's why it's so important for all of us to kind of take the time to sit with the uncomfortable, scary truth of, am I just scared of being by myself? And it is scary. And I will say that when I was single, I did feel lonely. There were times where I, it didn't happen so much, because I will say that when you're consciously trying to rebuild your life and pour into hobbies, I think it doesn't happen all the time, but it will happen. And for me, I would say the thing that really helped me kind of pull out of that, or just not act on that so much, was acknowledging that, yes, I could be lonely and unhappy and act on it and then just be with someone. But if I did that, then I could also find myself in a scarier future. And that maybe it's just a very personal thing, but the scarier future is being with the wrong person. It's finding myself investing, connecting with someone and getting confused. And because I've been there before, then I'm just with the wrong person. And what if I get stuck? What if I get stuck there? And I think stuck is just a mindset. You're never truly, truly stuck in whatever situation. You can always change. But my biggest fear, which I don't know if it's the right thing, but it's what helped me kind of not act on being alone, act on just, out of loneliness, is because if I did that, I really did think ahead, okay, what would that look like if I ended up with someone and they weren't the right person? Then how much unhappier would I be? And that is how I have felt in my previous relationships. That loneliness that you feel when you're with the wrong person can feel more crippling than being lonely by yourself, because then, yes, it is isolating and it is scary, but you can also find connections through other communities and family and friends, and you can still build happiness versus being stuck with someone, which, yeah, I think I've seen so many examples and I've been in that situation before. So I'm like, I don't choose that.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
it
Yeah.
does. You keep referring to being able to visualize forwards.
Yeah.
Again, like with the apps and a lot of people I see, they're very stuck in the now. Like to even think about next
Mm,
week is a big step for them.
mm.
Where does that come from? Like, is that something
Oh,
that your whole family does, or like,
no, I think that's such a great question. I think it's probably a personality trait from like being, I touched on this at the very beginning of the episode, but like being an eldest daughter who has had to maybe hold a lot of responsibility at home and also like achieve and have this perfectionistic tendency. I think I'm always overthinking future scenarios. Like I'm always thinking, okay, where is this going to lead me? And in some ways, I need to learn to control that. But it really is from this place of like, for now, I know that I'm using it to manage the regret or just live a life that's more aligned. But in the past, it really was out of fear of making the wrong decision. It was just, I don't want to be wrong in whatever path that I choose. And so, therefore, in order to do that, I have to look ahead and be like, out of these pathways, what is the possible outcome and how am I going to mitigate that risk? So that's probably where it comes from for me. And I've had to learn how to approach it more healthily, because you can get obsessive about all these, you can overthink every scenario.
yeah, of course.
But now I do it just to help me check in and say, am I living a life that's aligned with what I want? And am I going to regret? Am I going to regret making this decision? And I find that most times we don't really regret, we just learn, right? But I think if I have that approach, it helps me kind of be more healthy in that visualization. Mm.
Mm. Have you got any friends that have gone through something similar? Or-
Uh, Probably more breakups, and similar in the sense of dating or
I
like,
guess both. My follow-up question would be
yeah.
like, what advice are you giving to them?
Oh, okay. I do. I think I have some friends who are currently single and dating and have had similar to me in that they found themselves single later on in life. And the advice I've given them is similar to how I approached it in that year that I was trying to, um, again, find myself, but also be open to finding my person. And I think it just comes down to getting clearer on what you want. And really, for me, it was just having this like unwavering hope and belief that it was going to work out. I think and really just try to remove the fear. I know that I'm someone that can be really fear driven. And when you're driven by fear, you act from this scarcity mindset. There's not enough good men out there. The person I
Mm,
want isn't out there, right? And I'm going to be lonely. So therefore, I need to accept what comes in. So I think when I shifted that mindset and was able to really just see it as that person will come when they come. And the time that I have now, I remember distinctly thinking this. I was like, this period of time of me being single is beautiful and it's going to end because when I meet my person, it's going to end. So I want to live it without waiting. I don't want to be waiting for my person. I want to just fill it up with experiences and I want to, I think, embrace this period where I can kind of be selfish in terms of I'm making a decision for my life that's not going to impact anyone. I don't have dependents, I don't have a partner. So I can really just embrace that. And I think when I did that fully, it was when he came. And I think, and I say this, it's so annoying because I think I've heard this when I seek other stories of other people who met their loved ones like later on in life. I really turn to them for hope. And I fundamentally believe that like love is all around us and we can connect with like so many people at so many different stages of our lives. And I never want to give that up. And I think if you're just consciously on that journey, then you don't find yourself you don't find yourself in that unhealthy mindset and just kind of acting out of fear and because you're scared and because I think it's just really learning how to like uplift yourself. um yeah.
Any tips on understanding that? Again, you use journaling, friends,
Yeah.
therapy, that sort of stuff. Is that still advice you'd give?
Yeah, I think journaling really helped me in the sense of I actually would sometimes go back to reflect or read back and see
Mm,
what I was feeling at the time. And it's so important to actually see your own growth or just see what you prioritize at the time. And just because I will say that like this goes far back into my early dating career, but journaling actually helped me leave one of my very first relationships without realizing it because I had journaled how I was feeling maybe 2 years into that relationship. I was only, I think, in my early 20s, 18, 19, 20, and I had journaled just how unhappy I was. And I'd written, oh, I really hope that things change. It was kind of like saying, look, these are the things I hope will change. And if they don't, I don't know if I can stay. And that's just what I'd written. And then obviously, I think I moved on with life. And a year later, I was cleaning my room and I found that entry and I read it. And I remember thinking, I feel the exact same. Like, I feel the exact same. And that was a really big kind of slap to my face to be like, well,
mm.
be accountable. If you're feeling the same, you were so unhappy then. You said if it didn't change, that you should probably leave. And that was ultimately what helped me leave that relationship. And so I think things like journaling, taking the time to reflect, and you can spend time with people and talk about it, having professional help. I advocate for because sometimes when you're in your head, you need someone to help you organize those thoughts. And they can give you tools to move forward and get in tune with yourself. And I think learning about what brings you joy outside of relationship, I think it's so important to have an identity outside of that, which I think all of us sometimes on social media and who we talk, like we just see that we can really be consumed by that and then just amplify that part of ourselves that doesn't have a partner, but you're so much more than that. So I think for me, I picked up dancing in my late 20s to 30s. I built a business, like did all these things that I knew were for me. And I think that's what each person should spend time doing, whatever that looks like. It's just, and sometimes it's just thinking about what made you happy as a child, like just what makes you happy in general. And I think you can feel, the more you fill your life up, the better you'll feel about
Mm.
and re-entering dating. And it helps yeah, it helps avoid all the other things you talked about when you're dating and just, you know, from your wounds, or you're just dating to fill a void. I think if you negate that and you really work on that, it helps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, Good example of that. A mate of mine, uh, again, dating, all that sort of stuff, not like short relationships, just couldn't find anybody that would stick and wasn't having much success either. But then I'd say in the last 6 months, he's just completely changed. He bought a
Yeah.
motorbike, he's out motorbike riding, he's learning how to do that. He's going out doing all these other things for him. He's started to learn how to do salsa dancing.
Oh, I love that.
So
I love that so
he's
much.
just doing all these things, and like I could even see in him, like a couple of months later when we caught up for a catch up, like he seemed different, like his confidence was different, and he's like, "Oh, I went to this speed dating. Is it speed dating
Yes.
where you go
Those
around the town?"
events. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he's like, I don't know what changed, but it's just so there was 8 people that you could meet, catch up with, and he ended up getting 9 numbers. I'm like, hold
It's a
on,
nice
how'd you
one.
get? Yeah, exactly. So just another girl that was there on the night also gave him his
Oh,
number. So like,
lovely.
yeah, he's gone out, done everything, found his true form, and it obviously shows. Again, he's not going into those um, speed dating things like, you know, I need to find somebody. He's just going in
Yeah.
there, having a bit of fun and being himself, and it obviously goes to show that it works.
Oh, I love that so much because I do think that yeah, you can become more magnetic, or you're able to attract the right people when you exude a certain type of energy. And maybe that's how I see myself when I move through it and I see people. The people that inspire me are the ones who are so authentic. They just own themselves. And I think when you meet them, you just feel like there's this grounded sense of inner confidence. And I love being in their presence. And it's something that I want to emulate. I think all of us should. But
Mm.
I think that's probably what we all should aim towards. And that really helps. It's just a shift. And then, yeah, you're able to connect with people more authentically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Brings me
Yeah.
into my next point of
So,
mirroring somebody when you're on dates and that sort of stuff. So I guess I'll start this off with one of my examples.
mm,
Um, so I am seeing somebody now.
mm.
When we started off, I guess this is probably touching on two of the subjects. I
Yeah.
guess I came across a bit, you know, who she wanted to see. So, like, you know, she was like, "Oh, I like this, this, this." I'm like, "I'm this, this, and this."
Love that so much.
Uh, but again, I think she could see that I was authentic with what I wanted to do. And then over probably
Mm,
the last month, I've just been crazy busy. And those things that I said I hadn't
mm,
really been doing just because
mm.
other things, you know, work, chasing
Of
certain goals with
course.
the podcast and all that sort of stuff, things just sort of got sidetracked and energy just shifts from, you know, I guess her to the business a little bit more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she said to me, "Do you think you oversold yourself when we first started?" uh, and I was like, "Look, yeah, probably. Like, sometimes I just don't manage my time well. But the
Mm.
question is, like, how do you, you know, catch yourself from, you know, you're attracted to somebody, you want to put your best foot forwards, but how do you not, you know, put a mirror up to what they want and just sort of you know, overdo it for yourself and then,
Oh, great question. Because I think I will say that you probably also had the intent. It wasn't, you know, that you didn't want to be or do the things that she was sharing. And I think
Hmm,
that's the part that was probably still authentic to you. It's what you intended. I think it comes down to also a level of maybe it comes to just like really true honesty about what your capacity is and knowing what your values are. And I know that for people who are very driven, like yourself, or just have these big goals and passion projects, and you're doing a lot at all times, for the right people, I think when you communicate that, then they'll understand that you giving what is your 100% is still your 100% because of all of your priorities, but it may look different to someone who has more time capacity in their life. And I think it's when you communicate that to that person, the person on the receiving end can then look at that and say, I can see it's your 100% and I accept. I accept because it's your 100% versus, well, your 100% actually only feels my like 60 to 70 or, 50% of what I want. And that need is very individual. I will say that because there are some people who are also equally as driven, busy, and all of that. And for them in a relationship, but to feel connected, they may only need certain touch points or, whatever. It might just be a quick phone call at the end of the day. But when you are present for that 10 minutes of their day, that's all they need. And I can speak to that because that's probably what I have to a certain degree, with my fiance, because he is very busy. He's studying. He's gone back to study. So our lives are actually very, very busy. But I know what I'm getting from him is his 100%. And I
Mm.
would take that over someone who has a lot of time because perhaps they're working a different job and they have a lot of time, but they may give me hours, but it's not like intentional, it's not as present. They could be giving the physical time, but it's not the 100%. And I just won't feel that that's a good match. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
I think that comes, yeah. So being present in that time you're with that person. And obviously, in my example, like my partner, she's like, well, when we're together, like, like you said, be present,
yeah,
and, say a couple of things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that and I could do this, this and this. But yeah, you're right. Just so when you're with somebody, giving them the attention. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. So again, like, I don't know how other people live, but I'm assuming when you sit down and eat a meal, people are watching TV on their
yep,
phones when
yep,
that is time you could be
yep.
having a conversation.
Yes, no, I have to speak to this because it's something that I had to address really early on because again we had really busy schedules. So I'm going to be honest, when we first met, I remember having that same conversation and saying that like I know that we're both so busy and I actually don't I know you're making all this effort for us to have time together, but it wasn't time together because it was time in each other's presence, but it wasn't at full attention. And that's just purely because we would try to overlap and do activities together, or he would be doing his work and I'd be there. And I'm like, yes, I know you're giving me hours of sitting next to each other while you're doing your studies and I'm working on my business, but that actually doesn't equate to the same as if you just gave me 20 minutes at the end of the day where you all distractions are off and you're just looking at me and you're checking in and you're like, how are you feeling? How was your day? And I think that is so much more meaningful. And those are conversations you have to have because for him, he did feel, and probably myself included, I just felt like, okay, we're getting all of this time, and I know you're making so much effort to carve out this time when you're so busy, but I'm not getting the connection. So then what's going on? And I think it's just a lot of us, and probably our phones, we're guilty of it, but putting away that phone and just looking at your partner and giving them that attention for the 10 minutes is probably going to do wonders versus like, half attentive, like attention. Yeah.
Mm. But
Mm.
again, I'll say for the girls out there talk like dating with the guys, make sure the guys understand that.
Oh, and that's what I mean.
Because
You have,
like
yeah,
you've just said that, and I'm pretty sure my partner, she's said that to me a couple of times in a roundabout way, but you said that way more direct. I'm like, yeah. As soon as you said, I'm like,
it
I
makes
could
sense,
be
right?
doing, yeah, yeah.
No, but I'm going to tell you now, I had that exact conversation with my fiance, who I love to death, who is my person. And even us navigating that meant I had to have that direct, um, explicit communication of what I wanted and what it looked like. I think sometimes we're so careful because we don't want to hurt people's feelings or we're not really sure. And I think he appreciates too. He sometimes is just tell me exactly what it is that you need and just makes the whole process a lot more smoother. Yeah.
Mm. And again, if you're doing that and saying that, and that other person isn't picking up on it, then it's probably a good example that things aren't working.
Yeah, you're probably not compatible, but you wanna give that relationship the best chance. And that is where you just speak your piece and you just say, this is what is important to me. You give them an opportunity. You give them opportunity. But and you understand they're human and it takes time. But if again they're not listening or they don't comprehend and they're not showing you the effort, time will tell. Time will
Mm.
tell. Yeah.
Let's touch on settling down. When I
Uh-huh.
say let's settle down,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think of?
Oh, I think it's when you choose to live the conventional life without consciously like choosing it or acknowledging it's what you want. So it's mm, get finding someone, getting married, and then starting a family without actually actively thinking this is what I want and I'm excited for it and I'm doing it with the right person. I think it's when you do it and you go with the flow of it, kind of unconsciously because you feel like you should. It's the difference is doing something because you think you should versus because it's what you want. And feeling as though you're compromising on so many parts of yourself and what you want. Because I've seen it. I've seen it, and I've also been so close to being that person. It's compromising on the life and the connection or just the relationship that you know will fulfill you because you'll get to settle down.
Mm. It's like
Yeah.
settle. It's like, yeah, I'll settle for that
Yeah,
because
I'll
it's going to
accept
be
it.
easy.
Yes, it's easy. I'll just accept it and I can
Mm.
make this work. And it will appease everyone. It appeases our families. And when you come from a culture like mine where your parents and your like extended family have all these expectations, and I'm the eldest daughter, so I have to set the path for everyone, then there's this added pressure. Well, you should be married by now. What do you mean you're 35 and you're not married? Like just yeah, that kind of extra piece of now I can appease the people that I love
Mm.
on top of it by just sacrificing this piece of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's like just your cult, like a culture thing. Like I get it from
Yeah.
my parents as well.
Societal, right?
Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I swear every time they're just like, oh, Jackie's just the weird one in the family. Like you just,
No.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's funny how settling is just got such a stigma to it. Like again, when I was dating, meeting
Mm,
different girls, and they'd be like, "Oh,
mm.
so you're going to stay in Melbourne?" Like because I've moved around a fair bit. Like I like to
Yes.
move around. I just think there's a whole wide world out there, and I want to see it
Yeah,
all.
of course.
So I've lived in many different places. When I bring that up, I can see the switch in their face. So, are you staying in Melbourne? Are you going to be here forever now? It's just like, well,
Who
like,
knows?
yeah. Again, I want to settle with somebody, but I don't want to. Yeah, I guess it just means something different for everybody. Like, I don't want to settle in to one place.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think that um that can be aligned with the right person. You want
mm,
someone who also values. And I think you're so right. I mean, I know a lot of people, and myself included, we value travel and it's a privilege to, but if you get the chance to, there's so much out there and it gives you so much more perspective. And I think there are people who, I understand the other flip side, but yeah, there are people who also want to be able to see more of the world. And settling doesn't necessarily mean you should give that up. But
mm,
if you do want someone who shares that, then you should have someone that wants
yeah.
to be is open to it. But I do know what you mean on the flip side. For women who want to settle down, they want that stability, and that
Mm.
stability can look like a place.
So when I
Yeah.
first started dating again, when
Mm.
I'd get that asked, because that question, I think that question
Would
was
come up
just
a
as
lot,
common
right?
of like, what do you do? Like, are you staying in Melbourne? Um,
Oh,
so
wow.
when I first started getting that question, I'd say, yep, I'm going to be in Melbourne forever. But then the last relationship, I'd sort of done a bit more work and I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, again, putting my true self forwards, you
Yeah.
find the right person.
Yes. Yes.
So how would somebody know when they've found the right person?
Oh, okay. This is, I'm gonna caveat this is a very personal kind of way of knowing. And I think it's for me personally. it was probably a combination of everything that I've experienced in the past. And I really had to work out what was the most important thing for me in a relationship that I wanted versus what I didn't have in my previous relationships. And I would say the two biggest things that came up for me was emotional security and emotional connection, like a really, really strong emotional connection with the person, and compatibility. So I think compatibility can be such a broad um, definition for people, but I know that in the past, I wasn't compatible with the people I dated, and I couldn't accept that. And so when I met my fiance, we actually started off as friends. And so that emotional connection just formed really organically. And I would say that as we got to know each other, again, just organically, I was like, are we the same person? Not exactly, but I was like, we have so many things, shared experiences. And I just felt as though we saw the world in a very similar way and we want similar things in the future. And the way I knew was it's a feeling. For me, it was a feeling. I met him for the second time. And when he came in to give me like a bear hug, I felt like I was like, it felt like this is my home. I feel like I'm home. And it's such a weird sensation because I don't know what that feels like. But I know now, I guess if we were to go more scientific about it, it's the nervous system feeling calm and at peace with this person and feeling emotionally safe. And that was the most important thing for me. And I just, when you feel emotionally safe with someone, you can feel free to be your authentic self. And he's the
Mm,
one person that I just felt so I had that feeling very early on. That's when you know, you know. And I think after that second time I met him, I actually went home to my girlfriend. I can find the message. I messaged her. I was like, I think Tony's the one. I think he's the one. Like, it's one of those crazy stories, but you have the feeling. And then what comes after is life and all of the life challenges and experiences and everything that just affirms for you that they're your person. Because you actually have to have evidence of, you guys navigating all these things together. But when you're with the right person, they make you feel two things. And I've said this to him, I appreciate so much. It's that they make you feel accepted for who you are currently. Like you don't have the insecurities come up. You don't feel like you're lesser than. You don't feel like you're not enough. But they also make you feel like you want to be better. Like they give you that drive and inspiration to, I want to keep bettering myself. I want to be my best version because I want that for me and I want that for us. So I think it's that two connecting kind of sensations or feelings of being with the right person, they bring out this version of you. And I think I didn't pay attention to how I was in my previous relationships enough. It's just that version of me was either I shrunk myself too much or I was scared of like really letting myself be just me and owning all the quirky, silly bits. Whereas with him, I just felt really free and he just accepted it all and made me feel like, yeah,
mm.
that's how I knew. Um, I don't know if that gives any answers or clarity, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I I I agree. Like
Mm,
I think there is sort of energies out there. You put an energy out in the world and you generally get that energy back.
mm,
And when you get that and but that takes knowing yourself. Like again, if you're projecting something, I brought this up in a few podcasts back before I was actually um, seeing this person. And I was talking to the guest about relationships, and it was actually a really good episode for me.
yeah.
And he sort of said, if you're projecting, like, if you're out there looking for these girls, because I was, kids are something I want, and I was saying like I just can't find anybody that wants kids, and he's like, well, that's not them, that's you. And I'm like, oh. He's like, you're projecting out into the world what you are attracting. And it was like, oh, okay. So there's something wrong with what I am looking for. Obviously, there's a fear, something that is missing in me. And then when I flipped that and projected the right energy and understood what I was looking for, you get the right energy back. And I think once that energy comes back, you're like, ah, that's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's so
Um,
lovely.
yeah. So again, unfortunately, it just comes down to everybody out there spending time on themselves and having those uncomfortable situations. Because again, if you're attracting the wrong things, you're probably doing something without realizing that you're doing that are attracting those things.
Yeah. I would say that, like, honestly, on reflection, that's probably was happening to me. And it's a very hard truth to acknowledge, because then
Mm.
you kind of feel like, well, is it me? What am I doing wrong? But it's not wrong. It's just needing to take the time to unlearn and shift those things within yourself. And it's so, I just remembered something that I probably want to share, is that when I was taking the time to figure out who I wanted, and I remember something, um, there were two things I did. One of my girlfriends has said to me, she's like, if you want to manifest the person, you should write down, make a list of the things that you want in your partner, and then put it away, and then just live your life. But you actually want to be intentional, kind of writing down, thinking about what it was. And these things weren't superficial. They literally were like emotional security, trust, love, respect, a growth mindset, like all these things. And I realized at the very end, I actually said it was essentially just another version of me, as in all the qualities that I can bring to a relationship. I wanted that matched in my partner, and that's only fair. And so that brings me back to that second piece of advice I think a friend told me was, if you are looking for a certain person, you should also look introspectively and be like, are you that person? Because it's not fair to ask to have someone that is, for example, I mean, fit or like active. Like, you're asking to be with someone who has a very active lifestyle. But what about you? Are you also emulating that value, and then able to bring that to the relationship? So I think those two things really, really help.
That it's so funny you brought that up. I completely forgot I'd done that when I started again in my 20s. I was lost, trying to find myself probably about 28, 29. I
Mm.
think I'd been just out of a breakup, and I heard that advice as well. Write down everything that you want out of a partner. Like, what is the ideal partner? But then this person also said something that I think is very beneficial but hard to hear. Are you the person that's going to attract that partner? Like, what sort of person would that person want to be with? And are you that person? And I think a lot of people miss that step of becoming that person. And again, I
You
guess
have
that
to
was
become.
that original thought of trying to find my true self. It takes a while. It's probably been about 10 years, so it's not going to happen overnight, that's
Going.
for sure.
No, but it's all a process, and it's literally just becoming. It's the whole process of becoming more of yourself, of your true, but like, yeah, best version, and keep working on that. I think it's chipping away at that version of yourself, and that is a whole journey.
Mm.
But I think the minute you start to become aware and conscious, that's when the process starts, and you just keep going through it and refining it, and that's when over time you can start to connect with more like-minded, aligned people. Yeah.
All right. We've been going for a while now, so we'll wrap it
Yeah.
up. I appreciate your
Okay.
time. Again,
No, all good.
for everybody out there, I'd strongly recommend listening to Tez's podcast. I was listening along and I had a few bulb moments.
I
And
love
then,
that.
and like I said, when you were describing all the guys that you've been on a date with, the guy that talked too much about one subject, I've been that guy. Um, there was a couple of other
We've all
examples.
been that version of when we're dating, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend it. Where can people find you, what you're doing, all that sort of stuff?
Yes, so the podcast is Tea Talks with Tez on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm also on socials at Instagram, where I'm a little bit more active. I'm trying to be more on there, but again, it's Tea Talks with Tez. And I am on TikTok as well. Slightly different content, but the same, Tea Talks with Tez. And I'm trying to really grow and be more active on there. But again, I'm on my own journey with it. So this all of this has been really encouraging, and I'm glad that it's reaching the right people and giving, yeah, just any bit of insight that it can, where it can help you along your journey, is literally why I do it. So yeah.
Like said at the start of the podcast, your authenticity and your passion definitely comes through the content. So although you might not be posting that much, when you do post, it's valuable. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was lovely.